Everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to Lucid's 2022 Tournament Game 4, where we are playing Nazca. This is turn 100. Stuff's gonna happen. Okay, so before we get into things, I kind of want to set the stage of where we have been. So as to talk about where we're going. So over the 10 turns ago, a little more than 10 turns ago, a wash of red covered the lands of Argosphale, and while we were at war with Pelagia, it became evident that if we remained at war with Pelagia, we would not be able to do anything should Vanheim go for the win. Or we would at least not be able to be as effective as we otherwise potentially could should Vanheim go for the win. So, we made peace with Pelagia. We designed a triple alliance, basically, right? Pelagia, Ulm, and Nazca. And we all prepared to make war against Vanheim. And then a few turns passed. And a few more turns passed. And a few more turns passed. And for various different reasons, some of them being diplomacy, some of them just being real life getting in the way, those attacks never really came to pass. So, that's unfortunate. The last turn or two, we basically decided, you know what, fuck it. This game is really Van's at this point. So, what are we gonna do? We're just gonna we'll do a little throne rush. We'll probably fail, and then we will, go from there, see how that goes, right? Probably Van will just win at that point, but who knows? Maybe we have something happen. So that is the stage that's kind of been set prior to this turn 100. Now let's see what happens here, shall we? So kicking things off at the top, we have some research completed. We have Thaumaturgy 9 completed. So this is actually relatively important for us because primarily this gets us astral travel, which is going to be a very potentially useful option for us bringing armies to locations to defend them, or more importantly, in a throne rush, to attack unexpected thrones, right? So that's going to be very useful for us potentially. But then there's also the Master and Slave spell, which is something that we can work towards to try to be some sort of threat, right? We have not made the fundamental basic steps towards that, but, we've been kind of like trying to prep things here or there. We should have been doing this 20 turns ago, but it is what it is. So we have research, and we can see there's a dire portent up. It's turn 100. What kind of shenaniganry could we possibly imagine? Vanheim has declared the inhabitants of Vanheim his chosen people. He's promised them that he should bless their land, turn it into a land of milk and honey. And now that promise has been fulfilled. So, Vanheim has put up Gift of Nature's Bounty. And that's kind of like a nail in the coffin, right? Immediately as soon as this was put up, there was a little flurry of activity. There was some discussion, right? Like, can we do anything about this? If we can, what would it even look like? Right? The idea of, trying to do like a wish for the death of Van's god. Don't even know it, so, right? It turns into a situation of we could try to do that. I think Van is a really good player, so I would assume that Van has already set up protections against that type of scenario. I would assume that Van would not make... Van has been exceptionally cautious, right? Almost to a fault, but not, right? Because obviously they're in a winning position. But I cannot imagine Van throwing up something like Gift of Nature's Bounty in a situation where they were not prepared to keep it up as best they could. So they've had Mother Oak for the majority of the game. My assumption is they've cast this with a near maximum cast, because why wouldn't they? It's also, we did get a little lucky here. It overrode Earthblood Deepwell. Neither of our global enchantments were targeted. So that is pretty fortunate. But we also know that, Earthblood Deepwell I don't think was a minimum cast, but it wasn't a, crazy maximum cast or anything like that. What would the point of that be? But I do think it was a hefty cast, so I could be wrong on that. Regardless, Gift of Nature's Bounty is up in a leading Vanheim position, which is just like, okay, we're all definitely going to lose. Let's just try what we can, and we'll see how it goes, right? So, globals for the turn, Vanheim, Gift of Nature's Bounty. And we're just going to go down the list of other things that are going on. We got a report from Forgotten Woods. A hostile spell has been stopped there. That's remotes for the turn. So remotes, Dome of Air, 1 win, 0 loss, right? So that's kind of cool. And then we've been doing Haruspexes, and actually we found 2 sites in the Harbor of Copper: a Living Sediment, which is a +1 nature site, and a Giant Anemone, which is also another +1 nature site. So gem income for the turn, nature +2. So that's cool. Probably still not worthwhile, but cool. We have a couple of events. We have in Golm a rebirth event, so a little bit of population. In Golm, a second rebirth event fires, so more population. In Cerulean Sea, a miracle has been performed. Unfortunately, the miracle worker adheres to a rival faith, so we lose some dominion in Cerulean Sea. In Klon, brigands have taken up residence, so we gain unrest. And in Centania, a very ill omen was seen and rumors have spread through the entire province. So unrest, misfortune, and some units cursed. So not a great turn for events for us. 3 negative and 2 positive. Cerulean Sea, Dominion -3, Klon Unrest +35, Centania Unrest +34, Misfortune +3, and 6 units cursed. And then Galm Population +460. So not a super fantastic turn for the events, but it is what it is. And then we had a scout discovered in Owen. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So, we've got a lot of movement going around this turn because we are declaring attacks next turn. This is kind of what we had already intended on doing. Last turn, 2 turns ago really, but last turn we kind of like finalized the idea of attacking on our own, regardless of whether our allies were going to be attacking. And then in point of fact, Pelagia started attacking Van. So now we're all kind of like off cycle or attacking separately. I've gotten confirmation from Ulm that they do now intend to attack. Gift of Nature's Bounty is up. They're going to attack. But I think from the conversations that we've all been having for the last 10 turns, really, but definitely now, we've all had this kind of mindset of like, game's over. Van's going to win this. Right, maybe we can be a little bit of a thorn in the side of Van, but they're definitely probably going to win. With Gift of Nature's Bounty up, it is, and without us having a comparable win condition or a counter, any of us, right? None of us have a comparable win condition. None of us have a counter. It's done, right? Like, Pelagia is not about to put up Arcane Nexus. Ulm's not about to put up astral corruption or darkness or I don't know, right? Like, none of us have an immediate counter to this, and that's very, very partially on me, because again, for the last 40 turns, really, I have been playing very much in a style of, oh god, I gotta do a thing now. Oh god, I gotta build a power now, rather than looking for well, I've lived this long, might as well keep greeting. What's the in-game play, right? And we've talked about this previously, the in-game play being like, Arcane Nexus, or something like, maybe even like, honestly, like an Utter Dark or something like that. Although I don't know that that would really screw over Vanheim at this point, but you know, there's possibilities there. Or something like a Gift of Nature's Bounty ourselves. Stuff like empowering for multiple teleporting master enslavers, that type of situation. Um, we didn't go for any of those win conditions. So Van is already in the lead, and Van has now triggered a win condition again without a countering win condition or a counter period. So that's pretty much guaranteed on the end of the game. About the only opportunity that we have here is what we had already decided to do anyways, and that is to try a little bit of a throne rush, attack a couple of different targets, throw our weight into it, and see how it goes. My anticipation is that we're going to get a couple of maybe fun battles, maybe tense turns as Van puts together what they need to put together to deal with our throne rush, because it's not, right? But I don't expect anything especially like, you know, successful from it. Let's talk about a couple of specific things that we are doing. We are still maneuvering a lot of individuals around for preaching. Our Dominion has somewhat stabilized, but it's not really pressing out like we want it to. We are reducing the candles from Vanheim a little bit, but we need to get more preaching happening. Especially now that we have completed Thaumaturgy 9. We really can do quite a few. We can deal with not having research at this point. Everything else is really a luxury. My eye's burning. I apologize. I'm going to be pressing it a whole bunch. But we are still trying to get some things. But we're going to try to get preaching happening in a lot of different areas. We're also moving out into the front, right? We're moving forces into Bara. We're moving forces into Old Man Mountains. We're moving forces into Nifl and into Amul. A lot of these are just, you know, Hatan Runa and things like that. But we do have some other things going on in the backfield. Specifically, we have some pretty big stacks of Supayas and Wakas and Sunguard and stuff like that hanging out in Satrandith. We're going to be probably next turn, we're probably going to be gatewaying over into Silver World, or we're going to be maneuvering towards Forgotten Woods so that we can gateway or astral travel at Viserion Arches or Mudwood, right? So we got a couple of different options going on there. But for now, the biggest thing is we're moving a lot of things around for preaching, and we're moving things into position so that we can start declaring attacks next turn. The idea being is that we're going to attack in a couple of different locations first, potentially Mon Herboa, right? And then a couple of other locations, maybe in Vanheim's Heartland, with the design of letting Vanheim react to those things and maybe even use a couple of resources, right? And then hit Satala, hit Cern, hit like Mudwood or Viserion Arches or Viserion Arches, both, right? Like that kind of concept. So we're all kind of like moving towards that timeline. That's the intended scenario. So that's kind of what's going on. Let's talk about basic mechanics now, because I don't think there's anything super duper like important happening. We're bringing our Queens of Elemental Air back to Nifl and Amul, but other than that, things are pretty typical, I think. So let's talk about recruitment for the turn. We actually have a fair amount of recruitment going on this turn. We have 1 Lizard Shaman, 2 Malqui Priests, 1 Rununka, 1 Huron Priest, 1 Gnome, 1 Pakwo of the Mountains, 1 Inca, 1 Hydromancer, and 3 Sunguard. So kind of all over the place on what we're recruiting there. And the only real reason is because we've got a lot of disparate kind of like concepts. We still want preachers here or there. Like I want to put a preacher in Devil's Pond. We're putting a preacher in Sea of Trolls. We have preachers basically everywhere else. So yeah, we kind of want to. We might probably need to get a preacher in Pavonia. Probably need to get a preacher in Packwoods. So we're still doing things like Huron priests and things like that. We're still doing Malqui priests to increase the number of long dead that we are summoning. We're kind of gonna take a similar tack to what we did with Pelagia, right? We're gonna send out these stacks of long dead and say, hey, you need to do something to kill these, or else, right? We will probably, what we'll include is we'll include things like Huron priests that can sit in the midst of 80 to 100 long dead, and they can march forward, right? They can advance and cast spells. And if you send just a Van Jarl, right? Well, that Van Jarl might get sniped by Drain Life or by Disintegrate or something like that, so you probably need to send something else. Something else is a bigger dedication, rinse, repeat, right? Like, so in theory, we can launch a bunch of Huron priests with 80 or so long dead at a province and say, hey, you need a little bit of something, not a lot of bit of something, but a little bit of something to deal with this. Let's pressure. Right? So that's the idea. The thing is I think, you know, 10 turns ago, without Gift of Nature's Bounty up, that was a potentially legitimate strategy of attrition to grind Vanheim down. Especially if we were working with Ulm and Pelagia at the same time. I don't think it's a legitimate strategy now. I think Vanheim is gonna have I don't even know that it was a working strategy previously. I just think it was a legitimate strategy. Now it's not gonna matter, right? Like, Van can produce so much with Gift of Nature's Bounty that it's going, any amount of attrition that we could cause is going to be immediately wiped away, right? So I don't know that we're going to actually actively act on those things so much as that's what I logically would like to do. Instead, I think basically the only real chance that we have is throwing super big stacks at Van and saying, look, you can only flames from the sky so many of them. Hopefully, right? You can only flames from the sky so many of them. So you're gonna have to fight some of them, and if you fight some of them, that could lead to a surprise victory on my part, right? So we just can't attrition this now with Gift of Nature's Bounty up. So, anyways, that's recruitment for the turn. Nazcan recruits for the turn. We have 73 Haten Runa, so a whole bunch of Haten Runa this turn. We have 446 Long Dead Warriors. We broke 400 and we broke it with a fucking bang. We have 40 recalled Supayas and 2 summoned Supayas for another 14 for a total of 54. Fuck yeah. And then we have 1 summoned Huaka for 7 Huakas. So really feeling like we are stretching our legs now on the Nazcan respawn special recruitment kind of like scenario. Really feeling pretty solid about that type of situation. For special recruits, we have a number of those as well. We have our customary 1 Dire Wolf and 1 Dustwalker. Then we have 3 Earth Gnomes, 1 Earth Elemental, and 9 Sprites. We finally have our Fairy Queens summoning their sprites. I don't think that they are going to be consequential, but in the off chance that, I don't know, in the off chance that Vanheim is using a bunch of devils or maybe some tarts or something like that, things that aren't necessarily sacred, because he already has air shield on his, it's only a 40% air shield, but a 40% air shield and an actual like shield on an elf is very difficult to get through from a archery standpoint. Elf shots can fatigue the fuck out of people, but it's very rare. But fatiguing a big monster can actually be a super legit thing. So who knows? We'll see. Either way, I don't think it matters too terribly much. And then we've got some rituals for the turn. So some rituals we have. Trying to find where we even have rituals. Oh, we'll pop over here. We have rituals for the turn. We have 1 Haruspex, We have 3 scrying pools, we have 2 vile waters, and we have 2 ghost riders. So let's talk about this. The horror specs, nothing special there, obviously, right? The scrying pools are somewhat special. We do have a couple of scrying pools going out, targeting CERN, targeting Satala, right? Targeting Mon Herboa. And we're just pinging to see kind of like what is. I do expect Van is using a lot of domes. What kind of domes? Are there things that we can do about those domes, etc., right? So we have our Hydromancers doing this. They do have Demon Banes. Demon Banes should protect them from fiery domes or flame domes or whatever they're called, domes of fire. And they do have innate cold resistance, so I'm hoping they'll be protected from frost domes. And then everything else should be mostly fine for them. But yeah, we're just going to ping Satala, CERN, and Mon Herboa, because those are our immediate targets. Mon Herboa is not a throne, right? But we have a lot of stuff in the Obel Shin Silver World area. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to attack something and see how Van responds. Because this is kind of a thing, right? If Van responds and doesn't do a lot, right? Then maybe we get a free forward out of it. If Van responds with overwhelming force, which we have known them to respond with, then that's potentially overwhelming force that they won't have to respond the turn after if we attack CERN or Satala or what have you, right? So that's the kind of general idea there. We'll see how that goes. Ultimate Gateway for the turn, nothing drastic this time around. We are just at 6 Astral saved and 8 Death saved, so normal turn for us. And then forging, we are doing a metric shit ton of forging. We've been kind of doing a metric shit ton of forging every single turn for the last long time, like 10 plus forging per turn. I say that's a metric shit ton, but I feel like for a nation that doesn't have a forge bonus, that is a lot of forging. So, forging for the turn, we have 2 Demon Banes, 2 Amulets of the Dead, 1 Ring of Fire, 1 Dragon Helmet, 1 Moonvine Bracelet, 1 Thistle Mace, 1 Dwarven Hammer, 1 Coral Blade, and 1 Water Lens. So, not a lot of surprising things in there. I think probably the most surprising thing in there is that Dwarven Hammer, and it's probably a bad option. But like I said, we've been forging a whole bunch the last several turns, and in point of fact, I have been not forging certain things that I maybe kind of wanted here or there because I was like, nah, I don't have a hammer for it, let's not do it. So I just made another hammer. That's a bad idea this late in the game. It's definitely a bad idea this late in the game when Van just put up Gift of Nature's Bounty. So this is definitely a misplay. We're not going to get a return on investment for this hammer, or it's very unlikely that we're going to get a return on investment for this hammer. We would have to use it for the next... I mean, it costs us 13 gems. It saves us 2 gems on a forging, so we would need to use it 7 turns every turn. 7 turns every turn to get a payback for it, but... I mean, probably we'll be using it for 7 turns, so I guess technically we will probably get a payback for it, but it seems like a meh investment. I doubt the game's going to be over in 7 turns, but who the fuck knows? I mean, Gift of Nature's Bounty coming up might be the trigger that Van is looking for, and Van might actually just start swinging next turn. Who the fuck knows? I don't, right? So, we'll see. Other than that, everything is pretty typical, right? Like, things like the Ring of Fire, the Dragon Helmet, the Coral Blade, those are kits, or kit augmentations for things like our gnomes or our fairy queens. Same thing for the Thistle Mace and the Moonvine Bracelet, basically trying to get those to a point of survivability that can also cast the big, battlefield buff spells that we want to do consistently. Water Lens, just augmenting the Hydromancers that we have. Amulets of the Dead continuing to be used for Malquay Priests. Simple stuff. Demon Bane, simple stuff. So I don't really think there's anything out of the norm there. But yeah, that's honestly kind of the turn. Not a lot of like big motions because we're doing a lot of logistics this turn. But the vast majority of it is just, okay, where do I need to be next turn to start declaring attacks, right? So I think our timeline is next turn 101, right? We're gonna declare attacks, a couple of attacks around in this area, maybe a couple of attacks around in this area, probably a big attack on Mon Herboa, right? Turn 102, those attacks will land. We will probably make additional attacks in the Heartland, and then depending on what happens with these attacks, we will make additional attacks elsewhere as well. But the real intention will be on 102 to see what is the reaction at Mon Herboa. On 103, we will have that reaction. We'll know what that reaction is. And then from there, we will probably 104, I'm assuming, make a bunch of attacks. So attack on Satala, attack on Cern, attack on Mudwood, maybe attack on Viserion Arches, maybe even attack on Furia over here, or on Spires of Ascension over here, or on Green Coast over here, right? Because with things like astral travel, we can actually get into those locations, and we can use things like Cloud Trapeze and Teleport to bring along a fair number of mages with us, right? So it's just going to be over the course of the next couple turns, gauging what Vanheim's reactions are. What does Vanheim do in response? Does Vanheim, now that Vanheim has Gift of Nature's Bounty, do they go on the offensive? I wouldn't expect them to, honestly. They seem content to fight defensively. My expectation is they already have a lot of space, and I think they already have a lot of dominion control, especially with their priests, right? Being able to blood sack. My expectation is that we're going to see a shit ton of temples and maybe fortifications start going up, and that's just going to increase the number of blood sacks. I think Van's going to try to play defensively and dom kill the world. That is partially like I have that assumption partially because of how they have been playing in the past, but also some conversations that I've had with Van. Van very much has repeatedly been like, giving off the vibe of like, I don't want to fight you. I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to attack you. Right? And what that feels like to me is just a person that is very comfortable sitting on the defensive, and if you're fighting a defensive war, it's very, very easy, especially with something like Mother or Gift of Health and Gift of Nature's Bounty, to just be like, you can't beat me on my ground. I'm gonna make everything my ground, my dominion, right? And then you're fucked. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think the whole world is now on the clock. And I think that just means that the plan that we already created, the idea that we're gonna try to go for a little throne rush, is what needs to happen anyways. So we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.